Hello, hi. This is Anthony Bedone for a series called SQL Server in 10 Minutes, or SQLITM. Today we're going to talk about Azure service tiers, and let's get started right away. Let me hit my timer, a 10-minute timer. There we go. Okay, so we'll get into the directories. We'll look at the service tier concepts first. Okay, so we'll discuss that if we can. And we'll bring it up. Okay, just enlarge it a bit. Let's discuss service tiers, and we'll start with the purchasing models. You purchase or buy a model of your resource attributes. There's the vCore and DTU. We'll be discussing the vCore. So the vCore houses resource attributes with different values. For instance, how many vCores, how many CPUs you can use, what's the min and max size of your memory, what's the max log rate, and it goes on and on and on. So there are a whole score, there's a whole domain of attributes that you can use. And those attributes then become part of the service tier. And the service tier, as I have here, service tier expresses a processing deployment. It's a deployment of your application. And currently, if I move myself here, currently the service tier is broken down into three of them. There's a general purpose, a business critical, and HyperScale. Okay, so review this one more time, this note box. So resource attributes are expressed within each service tier. So these are the attributes expressed in a service tier. And a service tier is broken down into three different kinds, okay, or named: general purpose, business critical, HyperScale, and each one serves a different workload differently with different prices and different capabilities. And just generally, the key concepts per service tier, it has to deal, a service tier deals with your processes, it deals with your compute process, your storage processes, your page servers if you have a HyperScale. It certainly deals with all your data, your IOPS, your throughput. It deals, and also another thing is it deals with your business continuity, which is the new feature. And that it handles your high availability. It handles your readout scale if you happen to have readout scale. It handles your backups. It does the backups for you. It's managed. It handles your disaster recovery. So you buy into a service tier depending on what your needs are, your budget is, and other factors. So let's get into the next screen. We'll talk about the three service tiers. Service tier number one is general purpose. We'll bring it up. And just think of the term general purpose. It sort of signifies that it's not a high-powered service for what you may need as far as criticalness of your performance, but it's the general purpose. It's simple as that. And I guess the key point here, do study the diagram when you can download these, is that I have a critical work path. The long-term storage is the disk storage, which happens to be with the Azure blob, or the storage of the Azure blobs. And this service tier is using the Azure blob as its critical path for storage of data and referencing that data during the processing. So it can be a bit slower. So nothing is really cached. The only caching it has are temporary transient storage of information like the planned cache, buffer pool, column store stuff, TempDB probably. So, yeah, actually TempDB, yes. So it's any temporary data, but the actual data itself, your actual database, is utilized in the storage blob itself, and then the blob then utilizes the resilience of your data as far as 3 copies and so forth that's built into the storage engine itself. So you're using the facility of the storage engine for your critical processing, which can be more of a generalized processing, which you probably don't want for your critical databases. So do review that. But again, the point is that the storage is critical here. Okay. We'll get into the next one, which is business critical. So just think of the term business critical, and there must be something more to this for performance. So business critical, also you may see business critical premium, but it's called business critical. Handles your Azure SQL databases, you managed instances. The point here, I think the key point is that the data or your database is pushed up into your compute processes. So there's an integration of compute and storage at your processing level. So the actual storage is only used for your backups. Okay, so as you can see here, the backup file in the Azure standard storage. So it's not a critical path. It's only for your backups, and your critical path of information is really up in your compute and your storage replica. So information is being cached up there. It has high transaction rates, high throughput, low latency. It's a good one to use, and it's probably the one we'll mostly use. The high availability resembles the SQL Server high availability, in that a quorum is standard, and it has ready-to-go replicas. So if there's a failover, it's ready to go, and you can process from there. So it's a good one. It's a good one. It's the one we'll probably use the most of all. The last one that we do have is called HyperScale, which is a service tier all unto itself, and it's a phenomenal piece of architecture. And I'm just going to highlight the screen here, and I'll just briefly discuss it because it would take a number of series to really go into depth on this. The one key feature is our page servers, which refreshes the primary compute node. So you scale out your database engine through the page servers, and each page server has a subset of the database pages. So it's highly scalable. No matter how large your database is, which can grow to 100 TBs, the page servers will grow with the size of your database. So therefore, accessing the pages is never affected. It's kind of like a BT structure of your indexes, right? The more data you add, the more levels you add, the levels there'll be more sub-levels of references to that data. So no matter how large it gets, the performance is not affected by that. There's a whole log service. There's a service that services your logs, and it services the logs quite differently than we know through the normal SQL Server or even the Azure databases. So it's a phenomenal process. It's definitely the future. It's where things should be going, and it's something to look at. Just in general, to make things faster, I always say you have to compress it. You need a batch mode processing. You have to segment things, and then you have to eliminate things and put them back when you do use them. You have to pre-aggregate, and you have to have a buffering cache. So this guy does that all plus more. Everything is in memory. It's highly scalable. It's something to watch. If you can utilize it, please do. I mean, you'll learn and grow with this. Okay, so again, we discussed the service tiers, which is deployment of your application. We discussed the vCore, which houses your attributes or your resource attributes with different values, and those are merged into your service tier, and your service tier then expresses what you're trying to do. There's three of them. There's the general, the business critical, and the HyperScale. Do download the screens, study the screens, and then do understand how they do process and the difference between them. I have 2 more minutes left. I'm signing out. Again, service tiers, thank you very much. Download the screens to learn. Thank you. Bye now.